Hey, hey,
Hey, what up? What's
hey.
up?
I switched it up
Ain't nothing
today.
much.
I switched it up. It took me a little bit longer to get on, man.
Nah, it's all good.
Trying to commemorate Kwanzaa, you know what I mean? Habari Ghani, Ujima,
I
collective
ain't hear all that stuff in a minute.
responsibility. Right? I had to take it back, man. I wanted to reset because, I started studying and practicing Kwanzaa probably about, shoot, at this point, maybe like 25 years ago, incarcerated. So, um, and it was huge. Those principles were very pivotal to helping me understand a way to like reaffirm myself as a black man in the black community and so forth, man. But enough about me. My brother here, Jason Davis. You know what I mean? My brother from another mother coming
It was
in.
good.
Good to see you, man. Always love to see you smile, man. Your energy has always been powerful, and it's rock solid, man. You stand on solid ground. I'm really excited to have people, the listeners and the people who attend this IG live, get to know a little bit more about you. As you know, this is a part of a project I'm working on with one of the people that organizations I'm affiliated with called Men Healing, that focuses on really raising awareness and creating communities of healing for male survivors of sexual harm and violence. And this is actually our last night tonight. We've done 12 different conversations over the last 90 days in an effort to raise $90,000 to make sure that more men can have access to the healing spaces that are created by Men Healing. And they've been doing this for many years. And I just want to just give a quick note and let people know that we're like $5,000 shy of reaching that $90,000. So thank you everyone who had the heart and had the resources and the opportunity to give, because your offering is really going to be able to create more opportunity and space for men like myself to be able to get access to the healing support that Men Healing has been providing for many years. And as all of you know, like my major effort is to make sure that men of color have access to these healing supports that Men Healing offers. So without further ado, Jason, man, tell people a little bit about you, brother. I mean, I think the world of you, man, and I can go on and on for days and talking about you and like, what I mean, the kindredness that I experienced when we first connected. Um, but yeah, tell the people about you, man, about the work you do and who you are as a person, man.
All right, so my name is Jason Davis. I'm from Harlem.
Hmm.
Grew up here, born and raised in Lincoln Projects. Probably been all over the country for a little bit of nonsense in the beginning, you know what I'm saying? But
Hmm.
shortly afterwards, like, me, I had a mentor that believed in me for like the first time in my life, and that kind of like changed my viewpoint on things, and kind of brought out that heart that was always in me. And from there, anywhere I'm needed. I don't care what community, how far and near, what city and state it's at. Like, if I get called for, I go there to try to bring a little bit of healing. The same way that I learned how to heal to that community. And to the individual. So I soak up a whole lot of trauma from other people sometimes, and I'm not the best at self care. But I'm damn good at giving out that advice. But I'm working on it.
Yes, yes. I'm always on you about self-care. Always
Yeah, I
on you, you
suck
know
at
what I
that.
mean?
I kind of
But you
suck
know
at that, but
what? Yo, that's the concept of the wounded healers, man. We oftentimes put
right.
our bodies, our spirit, and our hearts on the line to help others heal. But brother, you said it accurately, right? And I can't like exclaim it enough is the fact that you do show up. Like all someone has to say is like, yo, this is going on. And you showed up for me. Anytime I was in need, anytime the community's been in need, since I've met you, so I know that you're really committed to this healing work and really committed to this movement to bring more awareness to trauma. And you and I, we talk about this stuff all the time, like specifically child abuse. And we're talking tonight about sexual violence and sexual harm, specifically for men, from the male perspective, right? What is it? What is it that brought you into that? Was it personal experiences? What was it, man? What you want to share with the people about how you got into this?
I mean, I grew up with a lot of child abuse. Like, you know what I mean? People don't say that terminology anymore like that. They say all kinds of other stuff like, traumatized and, I'm old school with it, like, you know what I mean? But it felt like the most accurate phrase for it was child abuse. Like, now that I see it in hindsight, because the child abuse, the neglect, the beatings and stuff like that, and the watching, my father use drugs and do a whole bunch of risky stuff kind of led to the dysfunctional sexual experiences that I bear witness to and took part in. The first time I think sex was even introduced to me, I might have been like 6 or 7 years old. And that came from my father not taking me to school. He would get high and take me to like, random women's houses around the projects that he would be sleeping with. So he would sit me down on the couch. I would see him go in the back with the woman, and I could hear moaning sometime. I could hear whatever they was doing in the back. And at 6 years old, like I knew the concept of what a relationship was supposed to be between man and woman. You know what I mean? But my mother was at work, so I already felt the shame. Like, you know what I mean? I felt like I was betraying my mother already. You know what I mean? So I just kept quiet about certain things. I was already like kind of like being groomed on what not to do when it comes to the whole aspect of what sex is. So as he kept progressing and going from place to place, you know what I mean, and woman to woman, sometimes they would have kids, and often their kids would be older than me, and they kind of was hip to what their mother was doing, and that was the first time I would kind of get like hit on or have to fight, and like so this is my introduction to like how the world is. Every time my mother would catch him doing something they wasn't supposed to be doing, he would just beat her up. So that kind of like everything was supposed to be like hush. It was almost better to be quiet than to say anything, because I didn't want my mother with a fat lip. I didn't want to get my ass whipped for snitching. You know what I mean? Because that's exactly what he'd call it. He'd call it snitching. So my first experience, I think I might have been like 8 or 9. I think it was 9. It was an older young lady that was there. Her daughter, she might have been either 16 or 17. My father went in the back with her mother, and the first thing I started doing was crying because she was big. I remember like, oh man, I'm 9. She's definitely like, mid or early or late teens, and I'm already thinking that I'm about to get like, a beat down by her. So I started crying. She sat right next to me on the couch, turned on a cartoon, and she put my head on her lap and she rubbed my back. And that was the first like connection of like safety, a safety that I thought I experienced. Fast forward, maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, my father had just knocked out my mother for the rent money. And once he went in the purse, got the rent money and stuff like that, he bounced and went on his little crack bench or heroin bench. What ended up happening was, when that usually happens in my household, I would, dig through my mother's purse, coats, or pocket, because I had a younger brother and sister. I would take the money out and I would go to the store at 9 and 10 and 8 years old and buy candy, because that's the only thing I really knew to get, and bring it back, and I would feed my brother and sister. Now, this particular time when I went downstairs after the incident that happened when the young lady was rubbing my back, like 2 or 3 weeks later, I went downstairs, and maybe before I got through the projects, because she lived in the projects as well, she had stopped me and asked me if I wanted pie or cake or some shit like that. And because she kind of like nurtured me that very first moment, I went willingly upstairs with her when nobody was upstairs. And she told me to wait in the kitchen, went to the couch, and then told me to come in. And when I came into the living room, she was completely nude. She had put a piece of cake like in her belly button and told me to get it. And when I got closer, I was already crying. By the time I got closer, she had, like kind of like mushed my face down where her private area was. That was the first experience. I knew not to tell anybody because I wasn't supposed to be at the house. I wasn't supposed to be outside. All of these other things that I was dealing with with my childhood abuse. I knew not to say anything, so I just didn't say anything whatsoever. Hold on one second.
Mm-hmm.
The second time, y'all gotta bear with me too, because my mother just walked in.
But wait, Jay, let me chime in
Yeah.
while you're there. All right.
Okay.
First of all, brother, damn man, every time we talk like this, right, it gets heavy because I can identify. You know what I mean? Like, and we were talking about this just yesterday. Like, too often, many of us young brothers' initial experience with sex is with an older person. You know what I mean? I'll never forget, like, being among my peers and like all of us were like sharing stories about like older women who had like engaged in like sexual stuff with us, right? And even though there was this sense of like kind of like confusion, there was also like this sense of fear of not trying to share with anyone, you know what I mean, like how we truly felt, right? Because none of us wanted to feel like we were soft, like, like we didn't like it, you know what I mean? To keep it quite frankly, like we were gay or anything like that. Like, oh, you didn't like it, there was so much pressure as children. So um hearing your story just brings me back to that. You know what I'm saying? Bring me back to that moment and brings me back to the fact that so many young brothers experience the same thing. And one of the things that comes up for me is like, one, this is not to condemn any women, right? Because what you said earlier is like, I'm sure they were more hip and they paid attention and they saw other things happen, right? And a lot of
Right.
times they're doing things to us that they've seen, you know. And so like they're thinking that, this is what they should do because they've observed it, right? And my hope and prayer is that they have their own healing journey, right? And that's the way I look at it too. You know what I'm saying? But it's like this is something that we really just don't talk about. When it comes to boys, one of my sisters, Lisa Good says like, um, a mother would never leave her daughter, you know what I'm saying, with a man or a woman who's potentially going to harm her, specifically not a man. But sometimes that mother would take more risks with her son. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, depending on the circumstances, the situation that people are dealing with, you might need a child care, you might need child care. Because my first experience was a girl who was supposed to be taking care of me. She was supposed to be my babysitter. You know what I mean? And she's the one who exposed me to my first sexual interaction with a woman, a girl. And she was also like 7, 8 years older than me. You know what I mean? And like they didn't know. They were just trying to like get some child care for me. But it was at that point that they left me extremely vulnerable. And I feel
Right.
like if it was a girl, that wouldn't have been the case. You know what I mean? And Lisa was one of the people that emphasized that for me. But sexual harm is sexual harm, whether it happens at the hands of a woman, of a man. I'm also a survivor of sexual abuse at the hands of a man as a child. And so yeah, man. So I'm gonna stop there because I want us to kind of like jump quick because these IG lives are so short to like, what are some of the ways, bro, that like that affected you and like how you can, like that people maybe don't understand. You know what I mean?
Yes. So it's funny that this is happening all right now like that. So I just went in the hallway just now because my mother just walked into the house.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm still going through some of these weird ass fucked up traumas, like as we speak. So just to make things clear, my second experience with a sexual encounter was my father at 11. He took me from school. My mother wasn't home. He got high off a crack and shot up in front of me. Um, he had this older woman there that I used to always see, and he told me to take off my clothes. You know, from that point, I thought I was going to get raped by him, but you know, that's not what happened. He told me to come in the room, and the whole scene kind of like fucked with my head because I'm watching them smoke crack together, and then I'm watching him have sex with her in front of me. Once he did that, you know, and finished, he went back over into the side to smoke some more and told me to climb on top and into the bed to have sex with her. Um, the whole experience was like a mind fuck, you know what I mean? For lack of better words, you know what I mean? I didn't know what to think, you know what I mean? I cried, you know what I mean? I couldn't control my private part, you know what I'm saying? And when I eventually broke down crying, she held me like a mother or aunt would, you know, because I guess she was sobering up, or you know what I mean? And that was the weirdest part about it. So when we talk about the long-term effects of it, poverty, all of that stuff like is accounted for because to this day, don't know how it happened, but the woman, I see it sometimes about 3 times a week because she lives in my building. Uh, the first time my mother caught wind about what happened was at the age of 26. And I had so much pent up rage about it. And I just figured that she knew, you know what I mean? Like, you know, because I was still thinking like that. I never processed that shit as a child, you know what I mean? And Lord knows what kind of damage it did to me, you know what I mean? Because I know I was a volatile person, and I know I did a lot of different like heinous shit throughout my time. When I was 26, me and my brother was joking around about like the first time we had sex. I was like, nigga, like, you know, I had sex at 11. My mother was walking past and overheard, and she said, boy, why you lying? I clicked, I snapped, you know, and the first thing that came out of my head was like, bitch, who the fuck is you talking to?
Mhm.
You know, like who, you can't take that from me. You
Mhm.
can't take that. What happened to me, what was done for me, you can't take that. You wasn't there to protect me. And all kinds of like built up rage came out. She froze and started pouring, crying. I was like, oh shit, I didn't mean to do that. Like, you know what I mean? And I realized that as a child, I was trying to protect her from this ugly ass, you know, thing that was growing inside of me. Because all it kept doing was growing. And it's weird today that I'm actually helping communities and people that have been through childhood traumas and drug addiction and homeless and all of this other shit. And one of my greatest tormentors, my father, is cleaned up. And I get to see him on a regular. And the woman that kind of like fucked my head up is a home health aide in my building where I live at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's weird when I talk to my therapist like, yo, get the fuck out of that house. You can't live in a house that you had so much torment in.
Yeah.
Visit like that, or whether it's holidays, it's too much to keep visiting that hell, let alone living it for the brain to process, you know? So she told me just to, you know, just move, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But something holds you to that kind of stuff, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to leave my mother, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to
Yeah.
make sure that, you know what I mean? I don't leave her by her side stranded, like, you know, at an old age and stuff like that. But it's fucking weird. It's bizarre.
Yeah. Yo, damn man, cause so just I'm just thinking about people, listening to this, you know what I mean? And, this is heavy, and I don't feel like I did service for letting people know like how deep this was gonna go. But this is just real life for too many of us, right? These types of situations. And unfortunately, we don't create spaces for brothers to heal from stuff like this, and that's why this conversation is so important. Um, and one of the things that you always talk about, Jay, is like, you want people just to be aware of what trauma does to people, right, and how it affects
Right.
people, right, and you've been committed to like bringing that awareness to help people understand because, unfortunately, we've experienced a variety of different types of trauma,
Right.
sexual harm, community violence. We've caused harm, we caused violence, um, but yet and still we understand that like a lot of the stuff that we did, a lot of the behaviors that we engaged in, um, were a result of unaddressed trauma
Right.
that no one took the time to try to help us process. And here we are as quote unquote men trying to reconcile some of this stuff that we lost. If my sister Lisa was around, she would talk about grief and the loss of our childhood, because that's one of the things that happens when you experience sexual harm, such as the way that you've done and what I have, and so many other people, right? It really takes away your innocence. It takes away your childhood.
Yeah.
And we never have had a process of grieving that loss. And then to your point, where we're still dealing with it. You understand what I'm
Stuck in
saying?
it.
And that's the
Yep.
key. But I want you to, um, because it's without a doubt that like you're using everything that you've experienced for the purpose of helping other people heal. And
Right.
that's something people should know about this work. And if you're out here in this field, or if you're working with any people like Jason, like myself, you better take into consideration, man, that like when we commit ourselves to this work, we're committing ourselves mind, body, and spirit. We give our all to this work. It's not just like a 9 to 5. Jay is on, unfortunately, all the time. And that's the reason why I try to push for the brother to take time to care for himself, to step away, because it's like it's not sustainable. But at the
Yeah.
same time, those of us who are calling on Jay, calling on brothers like me, please make sure you take that into consideration, because there's a part of us that struggles with saying no, right?
Mm.
Because so much of
Right.
our therapy, so much of our healing is wrapped up in our commitment to do this work. And so sometimes we need you to be more considerate for us than we are for ourselves. I just wanted to put that out there. But Jay,
Yeah.
what else would you say to people who are like doing this work, working with young people, who've experienced sexual harm, sexual violence? What type of insight would you give them?
The only thing I can say about something that's that dark is you got to bring it to light. You know what I'm saying? That's really the only way to kind of like, put a hold and stop on this. Like, you know what I mean? For years, like, you know what I mean? A lot of us get victimized and it's so much shame behind it that we won't say anything. You know what I'm saying? I hope that my story can help somebody have the courage to speak up at those ages that we got victimized so that it stops. Because part of the problem was that, I didn't say anything, but that those incidents, things that happened to me, it caused for somebody to get shot. It caused for somebody to get stabbed. It caused for me to jump on top of somebody and start pouncing on them and not know how to control myself and stop, because I had so much rage about what happened. I couldn't do nothing about that situation. I didn't let nobody know about it. I didn't process. I didn't talk about it. All of a sudden, regular life happens. You might have got bullied at school, picked on, or a fight just happened, and all of a sudden you don't know how to control yourself because you're taking out that same rage from the incident out on this new situation, and it wasn't right. I can clearly see a couple of people where I actually stabbed somebody or shot somebody, thinking about childhood incidents.
Yeah.
So the biggest part about it is take the shame from it. You know what I mean? That's the biggest thing I always present. You gotta take the shame from it. You know what I mean? So unfortunately, it's not uncommon. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's quite common. Like, it happens all the time. It happens all the time. And what happens is the only way to get through it is to speak to somebody who's also experienced the same thing, to find out how they got over their hump. You know what I mean? On top of therapy and everything else that's needed. You know what I mean? Right now, I feel that I'm a good person. I'm a good man. But I know that I have these lingering triggers that surround me, that and traumas around me that can be triggered at any moment. I don't want to spend the rest of my life in prison because I didn't know how to process some shit that happened to me when I was 11 or 9 years old. But that's how it happens. That's how trauma, that's how mental health, that's how it works. You know what I mean? Something that is stored away in your brain protects you, and all of a sudden you get triggered from something, and all of a sudden you could be 40, 50, 60, 30 years old, and all of a sudden you're resorting back to a child mindset of 11 years old when you got victimized and harmed. The only way is to speak light into a lot of those dark places that we've been through. You know what I mean? So I encourage that. You know what I mean? You got to take the shame from that shit. You got to take the shame from it. You know what I mean? It's I'm comfortable saying that. You know what I mean? I'm a survivor of child abuse. You know what I mean? So if it's any little one, any adult that's been through it, you know what I'm saying? Let's talk about it. Let's process that. You know what I mean? Don't not process it, and you know what I mean? Because of your behavior gets altered, your mind gets altered, that you end up, victimizing your kids that you bring into this world that you love so much, but you don't realize you're doing it. I know, because that's what I did. I remember raising my kids and feeling that like they haven't been through what I've been through, and it's almost like this envious or jealous spirit that was inside of me, like, I should whip their ass, like, for shit that I knew I shouldn't have got my ass whipped for, you know what I mean? But that was in my head. It was in my heart. And it was all because I never processed or never talked about none of this shit I've been through. You know what I mean? That's the first thing. The first step is talking about it. You know what I'm saying? You're not supposed to hold no shit like that in your heart.
That's right. Yeah, brother. And I mean, that shame piece is one of the things that it takes time, right? Because despite, like you said, and this is something I always say, is like, one of the ways that we're socialized as men and we're taught as men to not express what we're going through.
Oh my God.
And so I want to add to what Jay is saying, like anyone who's working with young men, especially young men of color, who we have historically developed this distrust for any type of institutionalized support and mental health assistance. We don't trust them. Remember, we grew up like, you don't trust these psychologists. You don't trust that therapist. You don't air your dirty laundry. You don't tell people what's going on in your home. So we grow up internalizing that as like a code that takes priority in our home. We also grow up feeling like we need to protect our families because we don't want other people to intervene and take us away from our families, like we also know that they do. And so just for those people who are like doing this work, like just realize that like it's going to take some time. Just because you come with an open heart, open heart, and you say you've been through it, that young person, that person may not necessarily just feel like, oh, I'm going to open my heart and share everything with you, right? And they might tell you that I'm good. They might tell you that the stuff that happened to me doesn't affect me, or I'm over it, or I'm good now. It doesn't affect me. And the reality is that trauma is not also a rational process. Like, that's the thing that we misconceive about trauma. Trauma is not cognitive. It's not something that you can think about immediately and recollect and say, oh, right, this happened to me. As much as we've kind of started to take on that notion that if you start talking to someone, that they'll be able to help you understand some of the trauma and some of the triggers, that stuff is not rational. It's not reasonable, right? And it's not going to just come to your mind. It might come to your body.
And you gotta be willing to go there with them. If you open that door, you have to be willing to go down that rabbit hole with whoever you're attempting to try to bring to some type of healing. You know what I mean? Right. Because if you're not willing to speak about the traumas that you've been through, why would you expect them to be able to open up to you?
Right.
If it's hard for you to speak about it, why would you want them to be open, exposed, and vulnerable? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's a two-way street. Like, you know what I mean? The reason why Rich, we're so good at the work that we do is because we have no problem being just an open book, period. You know what I mean? Whatever you need to know to get you to your healing place, I will expose the good, the bad, the ugly, period. Like, you know what I mean? Because I don't need you to hold on to that. You know what I mean? And what happens is in these systems, especially in the US, in these systems, it's structured. When I started working for child welfare, one of the first things they said was never get personal. Don't cross boundaries. Don't, like, it was certain things that was put in place in alignment. So when I'm up here talking to some youth who I know is traumatized, I know what they're going through. I'm speaking to them, and they're saying like, "Yo, how the fuck you know what I'm going through?" And I'm keeping quiet. They know that I'm lying. It doesn't work. Now, no one's saying cross boundaries and start grooming kids until you victimize and hurt them. We talking about just being real to yourself. You have to be real to yourself. Otherwise, stay out the way and don't do this work. Do something different. You know, set up the GoFundMe for us and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Do something different, but don't tamper the work. You know what I mean? And start that process of healing, like we always talk about. I had to start the process of healing. I had to get therapy before I started doing this type of work. Otherwise, I was going to contaminate the work with my trauma. It was going to spill all over it.
That's right.
Because everything we do is triggering. Everything. It's not a day that goes by that I do not do this work with. I'm not triggered by something that I've seen or heard, because it all gets spilled out to you. It's like throw up. It comes out. You got to be strong enough to take it, go home, process it. You know what I mean? Come up with that game plan of self-care that you do, decompress. You know what I mean? Those should be common words that we talk about, especially in these kind of conditions that we live in. You know, we should be talking to, yo, hey, you know what I mean? Before you speak to somebody, before they go to sleep or eat, when they come home from work, yo, did you decompress from work? If you're not talking like that, then guess what? We got a bigger problem at hand.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
You know, we're supposed to be doctors, healed doctors, attending to the patients, not patients playing doctor with patients. You know, we just can't do
it. That's a fact, brother. So, we got it be over, but I knew we was gonna go over, man, and we're gonna have to do this again, brother. But I just want people to know, you know, like we good, right? Like, we put in that work.
Listen,
we put
all day long,
and we put in that work on ourselves always, and we're committed to our own personal self-care, our own healing journey. Because, like Jay said, we wouldn't have the capacity to support others. And our wish is that anyone who's doing this work be equally as committed to your own healing journey. Because one of the things I believe, that you can only support the healing of others to the extent of the healing journey that you've accomplished yourself. And so I thank you, bro, for taking your time to share, man. You know, you got to go decompress right now, because this is laborious, man. This is emotionally laborious, and
I had to leave the house. I had to leave the house because my mother's in there. Because the last couple of times that she might have heard me talk about this kind of shit, I know it's like a knife through her heart. Like, you know what I mean? That she wasn't able to protect me. You know what I mean? And that's difficult to navigate. You know, so my heart goes out to anybody that goes through those kind of struggles. But you know what I mean? It's a lot of us. You know what I'm saying? Link up with the right, you know what I mean, kind of organization, individual that can help you process, that's not going to take advantage of what you've been through, so we can start this healing together. Because this is not no shit. This is not no thing. You don't heal by yourself. You know?
Right. You healing.
You know what I mean? It literally has to be like, you know what I mean, like the fine print underline, like, you know, there's no such thing as healing by yourself. It's no such thing. Because in order to go through that hurt in the first place, it had to been somebody else there. You know, it had to been somebody else there. So in order to heal, you got to heal collectively. You and another human being. So eventually, me and my mom, I chip away at it. You know, I chip away at it, give a spoon feed her. You know what I mean? She see the work that I'm doing, and she know where it comes from. Because I had to say something. I had to say something. It was too bizarre, awkward. Like, you know, why are you talking about sexual traumas and stuff like that? And what made you the expert on that? You know, a lot of that shit had to get revealed.
Right.
So that she understands to be proud of me. To start her healing journey.
Well, brother, I'm so grateful for you, bro. I can't wait
you as well, homie.
Person, man. Love you.
I know.
Man. Be safe. Do something sweet and special for yourself tonight. You deserve it. Thank you for your time. Thank the people for listening in. And we're going to do this together, King.
We'll do now.
Peace.
All right, now, y'all.